All right, so a little bit more about variables and a few different ways of doing things, and then we'll look at auto here in a second too, and talk about scope. So as we're looking at this this code right here, and you're rolling down through here, we've got an integer, so we're saying int size, and then the next line says size equals 5.2. Well, that's totally fine, right? So we're taking two statements, we're setting this up, and then the program would see the variable size, and it would set it equal to 7. Okay, so that's not that really that big a deal, but we're fine there. Okay, if you look at this though, you cannot start with a number and then say equal to a variable name, so that will not work. All right, so you have to set it up this way. So this is one way of doing it, but you have to set it up so the variable name is on the left hand side, and you're doing it like this. All right, and you can do it another way, so you can combine it into one statement. So for example, if you look at this, and this is very common. So if we take a look at this particular statement, we have int length equals 12. So what we're essentially doing is taking two different statements and combining them into one. So where we previously would have seen int length and a semicolon, and then the next line we would have seen length equals 12 semicolon. Okay, so in this we're taking one statement and doing both those things. Then you can take it a step further, and if you look at this one, if we know these are all going to be ints, then we can go ahead and do this all in one statement. So we're taking three variable names here. We're taking width, height, and area. We are setting an initial value to width and height, and then we're just saying, hey, area is also going to be an int that we are apparently going to calculate later. All right, so we're saying int, we're saying width equals 7, great, height equals 5, and area, we're going to figure that out a little bit later, so it's probably going to be calculated. All right, so typically you'll see, variables declared this way. If you want to do it this way, where you go int size and then you say size equals, that's totally fine too. So you'll see different ways of doing this. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about auto. All right, so auto will help you out a little bit here. That's what it's designed to do. We will actually look at this a little bit later in the course. For now, you just real quickly, you can see auto length, and if length is equal to 12, then it sets it as an int. Okay, width equals length, also an int because this was an int up here. All right. Did I say int? Also an int. And then we have auto for area, and we're setting area equal to 100.0, so it will set it up as a float variable or double. So that's where auto helps you. But do not use this right now. Okay, right now I want you to set them yourselves so you get familiar with using them. Later on there'll be an occasion for you to use auto, but for now we're skipping this little section. All right, so we're not using auto at all. All right. And one last thing in this video before we take off, you have to make sure that the scope is right, meaning that the variable, and this will make more sense a little bit later in the semester, I don't know, a couple chapters from now, 3, 4 chapters from now, we'll be doing functions when we get to that and talk about objects and those kinds of things. When we get to that, you'll see it's a bigger deal. Right now, if you look at it just as far as sequential programming goes, we're saying that the scope any part of the program that the variable can be used. All right, so it can't be used before it's defined. So if we say int num1 equals 5, great. If we say cout num1, perfect. So it's going to output a 5. All right. If we come down to this next line and we say cout num2, that's illegal. You can't do that. You're going to get an error here because you've not defined num2. That appears on the next line. So you just have to be careful about the way that you order these things and the way you set them up. Later on with functions, when we're jumping around the program a little bit, it becomes a bigger deal, and we'll talk a lot more about scope then. But for now, just make sure as you're going through, this particular line would have to come above the cout for number 2 because we have to declare it, set an additional value to it, and then before we can use it. All right, so that's it for those little sections.